Do you need to put together a Google form with routing based on question responses or conditional questions? So in other words, if you select a certain answer, then you want to be able to see a set of questions. And so let's go ahead and walk through this. I'm going to explain the biggest thing is that when you do a question, you have to use a section to manage that. So let me show you what I mean. So let's do a sample question here. And then to add the routing, go here on the lower right, more options, and go to section based on answer. And so if we click on this, you can see we have right now one option, go to section 1 or submit form. And so let's add another section. And so it's down here if you have a small screen display. Otherwise, if we zoom out, it's normally over here on the right-hand side. So we'll zoom back in here and add a new section. And so I'm just going to go ahead and take this one real quick while we're at it and put that in there. And so if we go back to here now, we can see we have that section available. So it doesn't allow you to go to a question directly. Like it doesn't allow you to pop up a dependent question from that, but it allows you to create a dependent section. And so this can get a little complicated depending upon how complicated your logic is. I'm going to walk you through how to do this. So the first thing I'd recommend is mapping out your form with where you're going to go from each place. So you can do it in something like Google Docs, or if you like something more visual, I'd suggest something like Miro or Lucidchart or some kind of whiteboard that you can map out the questions and show some arrows on where you want to go. All right, so before I do any more mapping, I'm going to add the rest of these sections and questions, and then we'll go back through and map where everything's going to go. So hang on a second, I'm going to create all these sections. All right, so we have all of our basic sections. A couple things I want to point out is if you create a new section and you can't find it, what you want to do is click here on the more, and then you can move the section and you can move it around. And then if you accidentally create a question in the wrong section, just click and drag and you can put it into a different section just like that. All right, so let's run through how to route your form. So let's start with the first question and we'll go down through. So outdoor activities, we can now check that section, and then creative arts, and we are missing that section. I think I made it as a question. So let me see if I can get it in here. So creative arts. So if you click on a question and then do add section or question, it should add it right after. And now we should be able to delete this one. And there we go. Now we should be good to go. So creative arts and technology. So that's our first question routing. And then we probably want to make this required as well. And then one thing to note, so you can do things on a question by question basis. You can also do it based on a section. So see, for example, this is section 1 of 6. So when you route to a section, you could have literally just one question in that section. And then you could just determine, no matter what the answer is, you can determine where you want to go. And so you could do that here, but if you have like 10 possible answers, it'd probably be a lot faster just to do something like this. So if you wanted them to go immediately submit form after they answer that question, you could just select submit form. All right, so next, let's go to our outdoor activities. So this is just checkboxes, they can select whatever. And then here, we want to, again, click on the more, go to section. So solo means we're going to skip this how you like to share, and we're going to go straight to wrap up. Otherwise, we're going to go how do you like to share. Let's go ahead and require that one as well. And so you can require whatever questions you want just by clicking that toggle. Now let's go to creative arts. And again, we're going to do the same thing here. And this will go to wrap up and how do you like to share. So one thing to keep in mind is, in this case, we have a section that we're pointing everyone to before they close up, but this could be the end of the form. So you could literally put that submit form right here in that question. And so as soon as they select that, the prompt they're going to get is to submit the form. So just keep that in mind too. You don't need a final section. You might be collecting that up front. So how do you like to share? And so this is an option where instead of routing, we're going to go to wrap up and skip this technology section. So one thing you'll notice here is on this one, we have checkboxes. And one option we could do is we could do multiple choice and then put in each of these in its own section. But depending upon what it is, I made this a little bit simpler because if you have something like this, this may be a simpler approach because you can't just pop up a single question. And so for example, we change this to multiple choice and we go to section based on answer. I can only select coding and go do that coding experience section, but then I'm not going to come back and do gaming. And so I'd have to do a linear, like, are you interested in coding? If so, then we're going to go on this route. And then I'm going to have to come back again and go gaming and then go this whole thing. So this can be a little more confusing and challenging way to approach it, doing it that way. So you may be better off doing something like this if it's just a single experience. So for example, coding, and then here's coding experience. And then one thing here is I added NA. I'm not requiring these, whereas this one we probably should require, or we could do other maybe if we need to. And then these we can leave not required. So people might not understand that they could click NA. And so this allows them to not answer if they don't want to. And then here we can just go to next section, or we can select wrap up specifically and then wrap up. We don't really have to go anywhere else. So then that's good to go. So let's go ahead and publish this and take a look at what this looks like when we actually use this. Let's go ahead and put it in here, and then we can merge these now. It's a little bigger. And then let's look at what we're doing here. So these two have very similar flows. So if I go to outdoor activities, I can select whatever ones I want here. And then we have two routes basically. If I click solo ventures, it should take me straight to the wrap up. We go to here, it should go straight to wrap up. So sure enough, there's wrap up, and then you can see there's the mid form. So if I go back, change it to group adventures, and next, now you can see how do you like to share your experiences. And then we go to wrap up. So if we go back again, let's see if creative arts should be the same flow. So we can do the same thing, click with others, and there we go. And then finally, let's look at technology. And then this one, we just have that coding. We can select our experience here, and then we can either leave these blank or continue. And then there's our wrap up. So that's a somewhat simple version. I wanted to give you a walkthrough of how to tie these together and a couple different options. So the biggest thing to keep in mind as you build these out is to really look at your structure first. And that's just the important thing as you look at this, to remember that it's all based on sections. So you can put a single question within a section. And so, for example, we have, how do you like to share your experiences? We only have one question in here. And so that is basically how you'd have to route that. And so you can go as complicated as you want, but I definitely recommend charting it out. And if you're getting more complex than this, I would definitely recommend a visual one so you can track and do arrows and kind of point where everything's going. That way you can make sure it all works appropriately. And then of course, testing is always important to make sure that you map out a couple sample flows and know what you should expect. So that way you can make sure you're getting what you need when you go through the form. All right, so that is it for today's video. Make sure to check out the other videos on our channel for more tutorials on both Google Sheets and AppScript. And as always, have a great day.